Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I am joined by author Jo Nesbo to talk about his latest novel, a horror story, The Night House. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Very excited to have you here. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about The Night House?
Well, it's a kind of story where it's kind of difficult to tell anything without spoiling the story. But I can tell you the sort of the setup of the story. It's two young guys standing on a bridge. They're 14 years old, and he's our protagonist, Richard. He is throwing miniature of Luke Skywalker into the river, and then they walk down to a phone booth, um, and they are up to no good. They have stolen the Luke Skywalker figure, and now they are phoning what we in Norwegian call tulletelefon. That means they're just picking a number and pretending to be somebody else, and they call the number, and they say, "Hi, this is the devil, and your house is about to be on fire, and you're going to die, and you're going to hell." Um, and then Richard is leaving it up to his friend to give this message over the phone, and then he hears somebody else talking to this young boy, Tom, and Tom is going pale, and then the phone starts eating little Tom. First his ear, and then Richard tries to help him out of the phone booth, but it's too late. The phone has gotten hold of his fingers, his hand, and it's eating its way up his forearm, making crunching sounds as it eats the elbow, then the shoulder, and then Richard is just standing outside, and he isn't even looking in. He's just listening to his friend getting eaten by a phone in there, and that's the start of the story.
That was such a great opening to a story, just this absolutely gruesome sight, and the way that it's described, just him getting eaten by this phone was so visceral. Richard is also a very interesting protagonist because he's very prickly. He's a little unlikable, but there's reasons for that. You see that he's
Mm.
gone through a lot in his life, but I thought it was very interesting to read from his point of view. And you're right, it is tough to talk about things without giving much away, but the book is separated into sections. And
Mm.
I just was curious which section came to you first.
It was this scene with the phone,
Yeah.
which sometimes, and it. I think it started off as an idea for a short story, and uh, uh, I have ideas of the plot or a character, but in this case, it was just the meat eating telephone. That was like the title for his short story, and that was the idea. And so I just imagined this, being a kid myself and phoning somebody, and that, being scared what's going to happen, and just hearing a grown up's voice talking to you, and you're scared already, and we're
Yeah.
knocking at somebody's door and wondering who is going to open, and not knowing what is going to happen. So that was the feeling, that was the idea. And so the first part came first, and it was, and then I worked it from there. And I was, much like the reader will have to, try to figure out, okay, so what's wrong about this boy? How come he is the way he is? How did he end up here? And why is he doing what he's doing?
Yeah, and as a reader, that was a very fun journey to take.
Thank you. That was it's you look at your friends' kids. I have a daughter myself, and you look at your friends' kids and you say, okay, so why is my kid so well behaved? and they are not. But I guess we see it the other way around too. So I'm
Yeah.
still wondering about what happened to my daughter. Nothing happened to her. She's perfect. Other kids, your imagination starts working when you're trying to figure out, okay, how come they got kids like that and I don't?
Yeah. Can see that. Yeah, he was a very interesting character to look into. So your books are normally pretty dark, but I would say not traditionally considered horror. Was there anything different about writing this, knowing that it was going to be a horror book?
Um, it was a. I mean, it's hard at the time of writing. I'm probably not aware of what my influences are and what inspired it, but it's on the other hand, it's quite simple. I guess I mean, I've been a big fan of Stephen King for many years, and obviously, he's an influence. Um, some of the TV series like Stranger Things, I guess it's definitely in there. The fact that this is set in a maybe late 80s, something like that, shows that Stranger Things has had an influence. But then the characters, they come from, most of them, from real life. But I think also an influence that I just realized now talking to you is Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer.
Oh yeah?
Definitely an influence. Yeah,
What started your love for reading and writing?
it was my parents. My mother was a librarian, so she would bring books to our home. My father, he grew up in Brooklyn, New York, so he would bring American literature to our house. I mentioned Mark Twain and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. That was my father who brought them to the house. Also, Phineas Moore Cooper. So it was for a kid. It was quite brutal literature in a way. I mean, at least Phineas Moore Cooper is, and also I insisted at an early age. According to him, I was 6 years old when I pointed to a book in his bookshelf that was William Golding, Lord of the Flies, and insisted that he read that to me because I loved the cover, which was a pig's head on a stake, and I could read it just a little bit. So I had realized that this was about some kids on a deserted island. So and according to my father, just like me, he can't be trusted, and but he has quoted me as saying after he had read the book that okay, I think that this William Golding, he shows some talent, but he didn't succeed with this novel, but was a bit slow. But I'm sure he'll do better with his next novel.
So you had notes for him
Yeah,
as a 6-year-old reader on
according to
how
my
he could.
father. Yeah.
I love that. I know you've published quite a few books. Has anything changed in the way you feel before a book goes out into the world? Do you still feel nervous about the way people are going to receive it, or is it something that it is what it is now?
Yeah, well, I think I'm probably getting more and more focused on the writing itself, the creative process, and put less emphasis on publishing the book and doing a promotion for the book. I just spoke to a 19-year-old boy who just had his first novel published a couple of weeks ago, and he asked me, do you have an advice? And I said, yes, it's because this is a really really good novel, and it will get lots of publicity, and it did when it was published. It was like really sensation. And say that is going to happen to you. And what you should do is start writing something before the that all that fame and all that attention hits you. So make
Mhm.
sure that your head is in a story and that you're writing, because what may happen is that you will get so caught up in the attention, and you will believe the hype, and soon you will have all this pressure on you because you see yourself through the eyes of the audience. Try not to
Mhm.
do that. Try to just enjoy your time in your own universe, and understand that that is where you need to be. That is where it's important that you spend time. And so that is what I do. I'm always into a new project, a new story, whenever my book is published.
Mhm.
Makes you less, vulnerable, I get to bad reviews, and
Yeah.
it's less of a less chance that you get carried away by too good reviews.
Yeah.
But you just concentrate on your next story.
Okay. And so you're currently working on another story now?
I am, yes. Or
Oh,
actually, right now, that's since you're asking, I was asked to write a, script for a movie based on the Night House. So actually, right
really?
now, I'm working on what we're talking about.
Oh, wow, that would be very interesting to see. I
Mm.
would be very excited about that. Do you think you'll write another horror novel?
I don't know.
Mm,
It's like I started. I became a writer because I didn't want anyone to tell me, you know, what to do. I
mhm.
didn't want the boss. Um, and I don't want homework. And
Yeah.
I find that wherever I'm sort of sharing my thoughts of what I'm doing next, I end up, being asked, "Oh, did you say you were going to do this or do that?" And so I rather, say that, well, it's tempting. I might do that, but it's
Mhm.
and I don't even like to say it out loud to myself, because
Yeah.
I like waking up in the morning, really having no idea what I'm going to do next, apart from finishing, hopefully, the story I'm working on right now. But what will be the next story? No, I'll figure that out when I get there.
I fully understand that. I feel like, yeah, as soon as you make even a tentative plan or say it out loud, I understand the, like, I don't know if I wanna do this anymore
Yeah,
now that
yeah.
it's been said, now that it's out there.
You have the feeling. I mean, you have a few privileges as a writer, and biggest privilege is that you had this feeling that you're like a child. You wake up in the morning and you're telling yourself that I can actually do whatever I like. I can write this novel, and if it doesn't turn out as good as I hope, I don't need to publish it. I'll do something
Mhm.
else.
Yeah. How did that go, as a musician, since that type of creative is like a collaborative process
Hmm.
with other people?
True. So it's more responsibility, especially in my band, since I'm the only one writing music and lyrics for the band, so they are kind of dependent on me to produce something. But
Yeah.
it's a little bit the same. I mean, they know me, and they know that may take years without me writing anything, and then suddenly in 14 days I'll write 10 songs, and then we'll record an album. Might happen and might not happen. So it's as long as we have an understanding that that's how I function, and they are okay with that. It's takes off the pressure.
And you wrote your first novel while you were touring, right?
I did, yeah. Or actually, it was I finished touring. I would we had um, long year with the band, and um, touring too much actually. So I was kind
Yeah.
of burnt out, and so I was going to Australia just for a long break. And a couple of weeks before I left, I was contacted by a girl I knew a little. She worked for a publishing house, and she liked the band's lyrics, so she asked me if I could write something. Um, you know, Basically, what she wanted was a story about the band traveling, and I say, you, I won't write that. but maybe something else. Maybe you'll get some fiction. Um, and so that was a chance for me to do something I probably would have done sooner or later anyway, which was to write a novel. But now I had like I'd made a promise, and I also
Mhm.
had given myself a deadline that I would have to write a novel in 5 weeks, in time, when I got home, so I could send them something. And I
Mm.
did. And at the time of writing, I was pretty sure it was just going to be a test piece. Um, a visiting card, and then hopefully I would get in contact if they saw some talent there.
Uh-huh.
They were I would write something else for them. But it turned out actually to be my first novel, The Bat.
Oh, very exciting. So when she was reaching out, was she looking for more like a nonfiction memoir type thing about
She
touring?
was she was
Oh,
definitely, that's what she wanted. But I
okay.
told her that what happens on the road stays on the road. But maybe I'll write something else for you.
I was gonna ask, I mean, you've been writing like Harry Hole for like 2.5 decades. What is it like to spend that much time with one character? Like, how has that character evolved over time? What is that process like?
Um, he has evolved, a little bit like me, I guess. Getting older, getting softer, getting more sentimental, romantic, and both of us probably being kind of analytic and to a certain degree cynics. I think that is, that part of us is fading, and 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 but he is. But spending time with a guy who is so dark, it's kind of tiresome, and very intense. I mean, on the other hand, he is my favorite character. I keep returning to Harry, um, but he's the kind of friend, after you have spent the weekend with him, you don't call him back on Monday. um, yeah. So I do need breaks from Harry, but he's my main guy.
Nice. So this was considered a break for you, the Night House, since it's a
Yeah,
standalone.
then again, it's not like I write standalone novels or children's
Mm,
books or short stories, uh, because I need a break from what I'm really doing. When I'm writing these stories, that's what I'm doing, and I'm really
mhm.
doing it. And it's um, the reason why I'm doing it is because I have this story to tell. I'm
Yeah.
driven by story. I told you that I became a writer because I didn't want a boss. Well, I got a new boss, and that's the story. The boss
Yeah.
is always the story is always the boss.
I did have a question from, I said, our a listener of the podcast, Annette, who is in Norway. She said, "Is there anything relating to Norwegian culture or history that inspired you when writing horror?"
Oh, definitely. I think that um, my third novel in the Harry Hole series, for example, called The Red Breast, is about the aftermath of Norway being occupied by Germany, from 1940 to 45 during World War II, and the Norwegians who joined the Germans to fight the Russians, and feeling that they were protecting their country against the greater evil,
Mhm.
communism and Stalin, and in that respect, being idealists. Um, of course, there were all kinds of motives for Norwegians joining the Germans. So it's a story about um, you know um, a time in Norwegian history that is very important for the way we, as Norwegians and a young nation, see ourselves. There's by now probably been made at least one movie about every Norwegian war hero and every sabotage operation against the Germans during World War II. Wasn't that much that happened in Norway in those 5 years, but everything has been really covered. So when you grow up after World War II, you have the feeling that Norway was, sidelined, in a few days after the World War II broke out. They were sort of the heroes who turned things around during World War II. We were not, and I kind of address both what happened during World War II and also our, the way we we paint a nice picture. Norway is, of course, not the only country who did that. Where during after World War II, I mean, just look at, well, France, for example, same thing.
Wow, I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to check out that book. You said it was the third one?
Third one, the red
Okay,
breast.
all
Mm.
right. Adding that to my list. Um, so the concept for the name of the show, Books in the Freezer, is based off of a joke from the show Friends, where a book is so scary that it gets put in the freezer. And I was wondering if there was any books for you that you would consider freezer worthy that kept you up at night.
Well, like I mentioned, Tom Sawyer definitely kept me up that night. I was a kid. I was more scared by Tom Sawyer than by Lord of the Flies. Um,
Really?
I didn't, I guess I just, for me, Lord of the Flies were just a bunch of kids, fighting. And that was what my life and that's what I did too. We didn't kill each other, but then torture each other. But it was quite rough. Um, and I was always scared by the supernatural. Um, and I was actually, as a kid, I was easily scared. It was when we were on summer holidays and in the attic, all the kids gathering and to tell ghost stories. And I was the youngest kid there, but still they turned to me and said, "Joe, why don't you tell a ghost story?" And I was so proud. And for many years, I thought it was because they thought I was a great storyteller. It was only later that they told me that, we wanted you to tell the stories because we could we could hear the fear in your voice as you told the stories.
Oh,
Meaning, at least I was really into it. Uh,
yeah.
yeah. I was, I would have nightmares about ghost stories that I had come up with myself. Um, But late in life, I remember a book that I found hard to read was American Psycho, Bret Easton Ellis.
Hmm.
I I felt kind of, I mean, it was disturbing because it was so good and so ugly, and
Yeah.
it was like I felt like my body and mind was polluted when I went to bed. I actually felt bad just reading it. Bad about myself, I mean. And I was a friend of mine who who said something I think is very true about American Psycho. Said that what is disturbing, what really gets to you, is not the hatred or the love or the evil. It's the emptiness. It's
Hmm.
the um, it's the lack of feeling.
Yeah.
It's just nothing, and
Yeah.
that is, and I think that is so true. There's a sort of a darkness there. There's a
Yeah. And Patrick Bateman.
like nobody
Hmm.
is nobody. It doesn't really have a personality. It's
No.
just a result of um, society, culture, and the city he's living in.
Did want to pivot away from books and ask you about your climbing, which is something you started at 50. And what inspired you to take that on?
It probably was my fear of heights. I had that
Really?
since I had that since I was a kid. It wasn't
Yeah.
like I would, black out or anything like that. But I could tell at a young age that I would be, I was a quite, courageous kid. But when it came to heights, when it came to climbing in trees, I was what's the word, sissy? Yeah. That I
Yeah.
was, I was just when I got above 3 meters, it was just scary. But in a way,
Yeah.
it's I got easily scared, but I didn't really mind being scared. So I started climbing because I wanted to see if I could, master that or conquer that feeling in a way, control
Mhm.
my emotions. And it was, and to me, rock climbing was a perfect way to be really scared, but not being really in danger. It's not like I would probably wouldn't die. I could injure myself, and if I was really stupid and
Mhm.
not careful, you can die, of course. But it was still that, which is a big thrill for me. And so I was totally hooked. I started late in life at the age of 50, and since I've done sports since I was a young kid, um, especially football. I, you know, and I got injured, so I didn't have a couldn't play football at the level I played up to the age of 20. So I had to find something else, and it took me many years to find another sport that I love that much, and that's rock climbing.
Wow. And you said you're planning on doing some rock climbing where
I'm
you're at
actually
now?
you're talking to me now. I'm in Greece in a place called
Mhm.
Kalymnos, and I'm here for rock climbing. I'm here for 6 weeks, and I bought an apartment here, and it's 20 minutes walk from the mountains and from the climbing walls. So I'm going there more or less every day to climb.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I have a fear of heights, and I cannot imagine taking on rock climbing as a hobby.
I would highly recommend it, especially because you are have this fear of heights. I'd say that the physical part of it, that's the meal, but the meal needs spice, and fear of heights, that's the spice. And the more afraid you are, the stronger and better the spice is.
Okay. I like that. Maybe I'll go to a rock climbing gym or something and give it a
You should.
try.
That's a good start.
Well, we have a tradition on the show to ask our guests for a chilling obsession or something scary or spooky they've been enjoying lately. Can be a movie, show, book. So is there anything you've been enjoying recently?
Something scary that I've enjoyed recently. Um, well, since we're talking about climbing, I would recommend. I mean, most people by now have seen um, Free Solo with
Mhm.
Alex Honnold, who climbs without a rope,
Yeah.
straight up for almost 1,000 meters. And it's just for any climber. That is like just you would think that, okay, so you're a climber, so it's probably not as scary to you. You can see what he's doing, that and that is safe. Really, is in control, which is it's totally the opposite. I think that if you're a climber, your hands start sweating, and you can't believe that he's doing what he's doing, because it's just crazy. um, but there's another movie called that the way I think is an even better movie, um, and it's The Alpinist. um, it's about another climber, and I'm not going to spoil it for anyone,
Okay.
and tell you what is going to happen, but it's real life and real death experience there and then, and it has just some beautiful bizarre scenes, uh, both in the wall and on the ground.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I did watch Free Solo, and I can tell you, yeah, as someone that doesn't climb, I was horrified. So it's interesting to hear the perspective from someone who is more familiar with what he's doing and is in that world, and that it's still horrifying and scary and makes your palms
Yes.
sweat. And then for our final tradition, we like to ask our guests for a final girl songs based off the final girl trope, last one standing in a horror movie. What song would you want to be played?
Well, for me, it would be Perfect Skin by Lloyd Cole and the Commotions.
Okay. And like what is happening in the movie? What is that song like?
Uh, I don't know, really. It's just Lloyd Cole. It has a lot of lyrics, and
Mhm.
I just love the song because it has this hectic atmosphere, and it's like his Lloyd Cole is at the end of his life, and he has so much to tell you that
Mhm.
musically the lines of the lyrics are too long, and it makes for this fast-paced song with
Yeah.
so many words, and it just has this a nervous, hectic, very nice, energetic feeling, and
Okay.
you just want to get up and dance.
Okay, perfect. I will be adding that to the playlist and giving it a listen. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to me about the Night House and writing and climbing.
Thank you for having me.
Books in the Freezer is a bi weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Twitter at BooksFreezerPod and on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok as Books in the Freezer. You can send us an email at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com. Show notes for this episode and all previous episodes are at booksinthefreezer.com, where you will find links to all of the books mentioned in this episode, as well as links to merch, our Patreon affiliate links, and several other ways to support the show. I'm Stephanie, and you can find me on Instagram at That's What She Read, and that is That's with 2 A's. And see you next time on Books in the Freezer.